Hello! Today I have decided to answer a reader's worst nightmare question, and that is, what's your favorite book? I'm not talking about my favorite book of 2024, I'm not talking about my childhood favorites, I am talking about my all-time favorite. What book right now, if a gun was pressed to my head, would I answer? Truly, if I was in peril right now and someone asked me what my favorite book was, I don't think I could answer. Today, I'm going to absolutely torture myself. So I'm going to be eliminating my all-time favorite books tournament style. They are going to go head to head. I'll explain the books and then I'll push one forward and one will stay behind. That will not mean that I do not love it. It will not mean that it's a lesser book. It'll mean that it's a little less of a favorite book of mine. This is going to be a little emotional based, but also I would like to think that I have some form of reasoning outside of my emotions of why I think this book is best for me. But I don't actually know if we're going to get there. I don't know how this video is going to go. My first step is that I went through all of my 5 stars since I started BookTube. I decided to go off of that because everything before that was kind of rereading childhood favorites, and that's a whole other thing. Is I am eliminating from this list memoirs, poetry, and childhood nostalgia rereads and favorites. If I have reread a childhood book in the past few years, I know I normally read quite a few, then I'm not going to count them towards this list. They have a different kind of special box. They don't belong in this one, and I just can't separate them out anymore. That's pure emotion at this point. I'm also going to be categorizing each series as kind of a standalone. To make that make more sense, the Raven Cycle series, I didn't read all in one year. I read it over the course of several years, but I'm only going to be going with the Raven Cycle series. Moving it forward, I would be looking at it as a whole. If the whole of the series isn't very good, but the first one was, then that's going to affect its score. But as far as the brackets go, it'll just say something like the Raven Boys, and then from there we would go on. So duologies, series, we're gonna just have the first book in the series standing as a symbol of its entire story, but I will be putting its entire story into contemplation when deciding whether it moves forward or not. Memoirs and poetry, I'm just leaving out. Normally don't even rate that. I feel like I am just experiencing someone else's story. That's not my favorite story because that story is someone else expressing to me, usually their pain and suffering or like trying to get their experience across. It's just a very different situation. I don't like rating them. I'm not going to rank them. I'm not going to say that someone else's life experience didn't make the cut for my favorite book. But that did narrow these down quite a bit. For brevity, I'm going to put a graphic here of 2018, and from that I'm pulling the Raven Cycle, the Penderwicks, Nevermore, Strange the Dreamer, and Circe. The other books absolutely adore, absolutely love. I just know they wouldn't really stand up against these, so I pre-eliminated them. For 2019, I had 9 favorites. I'm pulling Baron the Nightingale and the Scythe series. So lots of really good ones there. They just didn't stand up to the spirit of what this tournament is all about, but I still really like them. I need to stop mentioning that every single time, or this video is going to be just 2 hours of me saying how much I love my favorite books, but that they weren't good enough to win the tournament. In 2020, I had a total of 18 books that were 5-star favorites. This was a lot harder to narrow down, but I think I got there. The Martian, We Hunt the Flame, and Rage of Dragons are the ones I pulled from that list. This was really difficult, but I really wanted to narrow it down to something a little bit more substantial, and I could focus on all of these for so long that I really just tried to be as cutthroat as possible. This is again not based off of skill set, but a lot of components that are directly correlated with me and my personality and what I would say is my favorite book. Like, absolutely, Elantris is a very well-made story. Brandon Sanderson is a highbrow writer. That doesn't really matter when I just like something more. Then in 2021, I had 7 books that were 5-star favorites, and I'm not pulling anything from 2021. I love all of these books. I said I wasn't gonna say that, but since I'm not pulling anything from 2021, I feel like they deserve a little little bit of recognition. I was going through a really hard time in 2021. The books I read, I appreciated for giving me something to think about other than my circumstances. Other ones, I just haven't gotten far enough in the series. 5th season has potential, but I haven't gotten there. Wolf of Oranyaro, the series kind of dropped off after the 3rd one. I didn't feel that same spark that I had originally. The Wolf and the Woodsman was close. The Wolf and the Woodsman was very close. So was Every Heart a Doorway, because that series as a whole is fantastic. I just knew it wouldn't stand up to some of the others on this list, so it didn't get highlighted. In 2022, we had 3 books that made the list, and this was less about circumstances and headspace and more about a lack of reading. I was not reading very much in 2022. I just moved to Japan. I was experiencing life. I was getting my bearings. I was learning a new language. I couldn't really intake more of my own language because I was being thrown into a completely different one. Malibu Rising did make this list. This is very specific. The story that's happening in Malibu Rising was something I could heavily relate to. Not because I'm a surfer in California. I'm a homebody from Alaska. However, the biological father dynamic, not to get too personal, is really similar to what I grew up with and the circumstances surrounding that. The interpersonal family story that was happening there hit really hard for me, especially since I had just lost my biological father, my estranged biological father. It hit correctly and it stuck with me, and it's one that I have actually reread since. So I do feel a personal connection with Malibu Rising, which sounds silly, and I'm truly wondering how far it's gonna make it in this tournament. 2023, there were 16 books. This was a comeback year for me. I was feeling really good. Out of those 16 books, Godkiller, Babel, Nettle and Bone, Gideon the Ninth, A Psalm for the Wild Built, Tress of the Emerald Sea, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and Sword Heart made this list. 2023 was a fantastic reading year for me. Holy crap. I was looking at this list and I honestly could have possibly highlighted more. I thought about Juniper and Thorn. Legends and Lattes has a special place in my heart. I love how cozy and warm it is. I had such a fun time making my cafe vlog where I went to different cafes and I only read it in cafes, but it was less of the book itself and more of the experience, and so it just didn't make the list. And honestly, I was just highlighting them all, so at some point I had to stop, and when I realized I was willing to stop, I stopped. 2024, I had 9 favorites. Wrong Place, Wrong Time almost made this list. I think it's just because it's a thriller and it's probably a one-time read for me, but it did get me into thrillers, so it almost made the list. I just didn't think it would go very far in the brackets, so I didn't bother. But what did make the list was Piranesi, To Shape a Dragon's Breath, Bright Young Women, and a newcomer, Lady Macbeth. I don't have a 2025 book favorite yet, but an honorable mention is that I am reading A Sorcerer Comes to Call, and this has very strong 5-star potential. It's not gonna make this bracket list, but maybe I'll do this video again in the future, maybe a smaller version since I'll have an outcome here, and we can see where it lands. But for now, it's an unfinished book and an honorable mention. I have made the wonkiest little tournament bracket you'll have ever seen, so let me share my screen with you. I was trying to go with just like, oh, what's my aesthetic? What does my aesthetic look like? My aesthetic looks like a pothead, like a 1990s teenage pothead, and I don't know how that happened. I don't partake. I live in Japan. It's not legal here, not even a little bit. It's like 7 years of prison time. Don't mind that. This is just me. I also don't have a very stable hand when it comes to drawing, so these are my wonky little brackets. I dropped these all down, not entirely randomly, but with the idea that they would kind of go up first against something I would consider a counterpart. You have like Godkiller going up against Piranesi, Bright Young Women against Lady Macbeth. Both have a very feminine rage feeling to them. Tress of the Emerald Sea, Emily Wilde. Cozy women off on their own adventure. Scythe and Psalm of the Wild Built I thought was really interesting because they're both sci-fis and a little dystopian, but one is more utopia and the other one is faux utopia. Nettle and Bone and Circe just kind of had the same vibe with witchcraft. Bear and the Nightingale and To Shape a Dragon's Breath had older magic but with very different heritages, and then The Martian and Gideon were funny sci-fi, so those got put together. So yeah, this is kind of the layout. I'll explain each book as I go, and then it'll probably speed up towards the end because we'll have already gotten the synopses out of the way, but they will be very, very brief synopses. This is not not a book recommendation video. This is an experiment. I guess we will go ahead and start over here because this is the top left. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. So we have Godkiller and Piranesi battling it out to go against the Raven Boys or the Raven Cycle series. Okay, yeah, no, I can't put this off any longer. I have to actually decide which one of these will go and which one of these will stay. Let me go ahead and explain what both of these are. Godkiller is a series where the gods have fallen after a great war, and there are now god killers that are slaying the last of the gods. There's fantastic disability rep in this, as well as it being queer normative. I loved the dynamics between the characters, and Skedi, the god of white lies, has my entire heart. I just love how mischievous he is. Then we have Piranesi. God, this is a really difficult one to explain. Piranesi follows a character who is just kind of living his life, and everything seems to be going fine, but you will start to realize that Piranesi's life is very strange, and there is some out-of-pocket things that he is mentioning that he believes to be incredibly normal and you to know isn't quite right. There's almost an unsettling aspect to it, but it's unsettling and whimsical, and eventually you come across other characters that maybe don't wish Piranesi well, and he is a lovable character who would never really realize that, so you get a little bit of dread alongside trying to figure out who Piranesi is, what Piranesi is, and where Piranesi is. Between these two, I also have read Godkiller's sequel, which did suffer from middle book syndrome. Piranesi is a standalone. Godkiller was so amazing. It was my favorite book of its year, beating out Babel, but having read the second book, I don't think it can stand up to what Piranesi gave as an entire story. I know Godkiller isn't finished, and I might feel differently about this later, but for now, I have to go ahead and move Piranesi forward and leave Godkiller where she is. Okay, we've moved Piranesi, so let's go ahead and move down to our two little middle grades. The first book is The Penderwicks, a summer tale of four sisters, two rabbits, and a very interesting boy. This is as heartfelt and wonderful as it sounds. The book as a standalone is absolutely phenomenal, but it's now a completed series. Each book follows a different Penderwick sister throughout their young adult lives. Once they're teenagers, the story leaves them as they are, but you get to see snippets of them grow up. So every character stays around 11 to 13, and you get to watch all of them like go off to college, do different things through the sister's eyes. Every single story has its own little moments to it, and I've read this several times, but I have also read Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend several times. This is a book you would be hard-pressed to not see on my channel. While I read Penderwicks kind of in the background, I keep it privately to myself, which is weird on a booktube channel, but Nevermore I'm very, very loud and vocal about, so this one probably comes as no surprise to you. Nevermore follows Morgan Crow, who is like a cursed child. She's seen as being unlucky in her world, but Jupiter North, the best foster father in the entire world, swoops in and takes her to a different world where everyone has quirks and different magics, and she finds her place there, and she's still trying to figure everything out. She does get older as the series has gone on, and it deals with some really deep and powerful topics. While the Penderwick stays with important topics that are more family dynamics, Nevermore kind of deals with larger politics such as like pandemics and racism and like social class and a lot of different other things. So while this is kind of like big picture and this is little picture, they both have so much importance to them. Oh, I think I'm gonna be physically sick. Okay, I am moving on. Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow. Really, I am putting a lot of trust and faith into where the series is going to go because The Penderwicks as a finished series is a 5-star favorite. It is an all-time favorite. Nevermore as it stands is an all-time favorite, but if we think back to Godkiller, so is that on its first one. Nevermore is 3 books in, but I have to move along Nevermore because I just, even as an incomplete series, it's done so much both with family dynamics and larger issues, and it's tackling so much with magic, whereas this is contemporary. There are so many things to juggle here, and it does a really powerful job doing it, so I'm gonna move Nevermore forward. You might not be surprised, but I am, because that was physically painful. I feel ill. I can't believe I have to do this like 20 more times. We are now deep in feminine rage country, which is incredibly valid, and this is definitely something I like to read. I like those good for her stories, and while Bright Young Women doesn't have one of the traditional good for her stories, I think that it does in a lot of ways because it has changed how a lot of people have looked at a very particular serial killer who targeted women because he was jealous, because he was petty, because he wasn't good enough to get into some universities. He was watching young women in the 1970s do what he could not. He was touted as a genius and was made a fool in this novel. It reads a lot like nonfiction and it has a lot of nonfiction aspects to it, but overall is a work of fiction. And then Lady Macbeth, I just finished literally yesterday. She made the list. Ava Reid has been so close to making this list so many times. It's not a retelling of Macbeth. Instead, it is a reimagining of the story surrounding Macbeth. Ava Reid took a story, saw a lot of its good bones, and refigured it to have a woman lead. I've seen quite a few people say that they didn't like Lady Macbeth because it wasn't true to the original story, and I would say that that's exactly why I liked it, and I like that Ava Reid took a chance. She did something different. I'm really impressed by her, possibly in love with her. Between these two, I really don't know. I know I have to choose. I think that I could reread Lady Macbeth quite a few more times. I think it also touched on something I really enjoy and I can't find elsewhere that I normally would have to read a classic in order to get, but she wrote this as if it could have been a classic. Her language that she uses throughout the book is very reminiscent of like classic literature, but it's fresh and it's new. I think I'm going to move Lady Macbeth forward. That's a hard one because Bright Young Women is tackling things in our world specifically. Both are unique, but Lady Macbeth is the one that's moving forward. It's the one that it's literally just an oomph within me that's moving Lady Macbeth forward. Down to my cozy girls, we have Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson and Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This is by Heather Fawcett. I am surprised that out of all of the Brandon Sanderson books I've read, this is the one that made the list, but when I was thinking of my favorite books, this is what came up for me. Tress of the Emerald Sea follows a girl who lives on an island. It's very sci-fi almost in its fantasy aspects, but she lives on this island and loves a boy, and the boy has to go away for a while, but he promises to return, but he never does, and he stops writing. People say that he went to get married. She doesn't believe it, so she journeys out to go rescue him, and she ends up on a pirate ship with a lot of really fun and interesting characters. There was a twist towards the end of this book that I did not see coming, and I really enjoyed. It's also described as Princess Bride, but if Buttercup had like a personality or agency, and it definitely reads that way. And then Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies follows Emily Wilde. She's a dryadologist and she studies fairies in the most nonsensical and no-nonsense way possible. She goes to different locations, writes about her findings, and because they're fairies, they're absolutely whimsical findings. Out of the two of these, I think that this is going to be a little bit easier for me. I'm going to move Emily Wilde forward because I think that Tress of the Emerald Sea is absolutely phenomenal, but it also very much so stands in the Cosmere verse, which is both a blessing because it's really fun to read if you're reading within the Cosmere. As someone that's less versed in it, there were a couple of times where I felt, I don't know, I guess a little shut out, which is something I'd like to remedy. I'd like to read more in the Cosmere to fix that, but I feel a little less connection to one of my favorite books because of it, and so as of right now, I can't really move it forward the same way I can move Emily Wilde forward because she has footnotes. She lets you in on all of the information, and I do not feel left behind by her. She's gonna go ahead and move forward, and we have now finished the left half of the brackets. We have Scythe and Psalm for the Wild build. These are completely different in tone, but I thought it was interesting that I have both of these on here. Scythe deals with a utopian world that has a major flaw and issue. This world has conquered death, but in order to curb population growth, they have scythes, which have to be human, and they make random or decided killings of people to cull the population and keep it down. The first book as a standalone, I don't think is as strong as the series as a whole. The characters really grow on you, specifically in book 2, and by book 3 you're sold. I really like some of the AI aspects and the conversation surrounding them, and I think that there is an alternate universe that's benefiting from Neil Shusterman's fabulous mind, and it's just not us, because our AI sucks. But the Thunderhead is something to behold, and I really liked this as a sci-fi. And then we have Psalm for the Wild Built, which is a utopian type world in which everything is filled with a lot of equity and equality. Things feel a little bit more fair and a little bit more neutralized there. Things are softer. It's very non-binary, queer normative, and this follows a monk who sells tea, and they are just going on a bit of a spiritual journey and come across a robot in a world that no longer has machinery. The scythe has AI, and the only thing that's decided by humans is death. In Psalm for the Wild Built, nothing is machine-based anymore. Everything is very much so of the earth and of human creation. There's lots of lovely little like soft, quiet, queer moments, and this is a soft, quiet, queer book, whereas Scythe has some queer representation, but is a little bit more of a hard dystopian sci-fi story. Incredibly different. My battery's dying. Thank God. This will give me time to think. Okay, after careful deliberation, I am moving Scythe forward just because I had so many strong emotions while reading this book, and I really want to reread it. It gave me a lot of different emotions. Some of the Wild Built calmed me down, but Scythe really kind of like fires me up. That does give me a longer lasting reading experience, is when I'm feeling a very heightened emotion versus being calmed. So while I have a sweet spot for Some of the Wild Built, Scythe is the one that's moving forward. Next up, we have Nettle and Bone and Circe. Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher is a novella, actually. Nettle and Bone is great because it is a take on the classic fairy tale where a girl marries a prince, and instead this girl is trying to kill the prince. The prince actually married her sister, but he's a crap guy. She's going on a mission to free her sister, and to do that, she does a series of tasks, meets a whole bunch of friends, including a dog made of bones. It's just a really fun horror fantasy with tons of cozy aspects to it, and it was my first introduction to T. Kingfisher, and it just stands up to so many good books, and the fact that it's a novella, that makes it all the more impressive to me. Lots of rereadability, a very quick but sweet romance. Everything felt very well paced. I couldn't believe how fast it was finished and how long I felt I'd been there. Circe, on the other hand, is a very slow read. This is a quiet book, but not soft. Circe is the first witch, the goddess of magic, and she is left on an island to her own devices, and then people wash up ashore. I'm sure you've read or know of the Odyssey. It's following the Odyssey from Circe's perspective. I just love all of the natural magic that's in it. It felt like true witchcraft to me without all the fluff and pomp. Definitely like an instant classic for me. Between these two, I'm gonna go ahead and move Circe forward. She's less fresh in my mind, but just as strong as Nettle and Bone. I've read stronger T. Kingfisher books now, so Nettle and Bone doesn't quite match up, I don't think, to some of the other books, some of which are on this list. Go ahead and give Circe her best shot and move her forward. Moving down, we have an old favorite and a new favorite. The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden is cozy in that it's cold and you want to just be snuggled up as you're reading it, but it is a fiercely chilly, wonderful fantasy book. It follows a woman who grows up in a small village, and the village has started to move away from magic, and she is the only one that is still feeding some of the old gods, including like gods of the hearths and the stoves. There is the god of winter that plays a part in this, and there's just this gorgeous story that's happening throughout this series. It takes its time in getting all of the right feelings across as it goes. The romance was well timed, well paced, but the other connections were just as strong and just as important. The rivalry between the antagonist and our protagonist is so insanely built up in me. I have so much rage against this antagonist. I felt the fury of her the entire time. This story was perfect. I don't have any notes. And then To Shape a Dragon's Breath is the first in the Nempeshwe series. I just read this year because it had dragons in it. It was such a surprise. It follows our main character. She's growing up in an indigenous culture that's separated from the colonized portions of her world. Due to her bonding with a dragon that was thought to be extinct, she has to go to this dragon academy in the colonized area of her world and deal with colonization and racism and bigotry and the loss of culture and how she would have raised her dragon. It's incredibly infuriating to read, but it also has so many sweet moments in it between characters. There is queer representation, there's disability representation. I loved this book. It was so sweet and so wonderful, and I can't wait to see where it goes. The potential of it is so strong. However, we haven't gotten there yet, and I really want to see where this goes. I can't wait for this book to be able to surpass The Bear and the Nightingale because I believe it could. I just don't think it's there yet. So for now, I'm going to move The Bear and the Nightingale forward. That took a hot moment. I didn't know which one I was going to choose until just right now. Okay, so here's the thing. These are two sci-fi comedians. We have The Martian by Andy Weir and Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. Weir and Muir. I wasn't even trying. Gideon's going to move forward. I'm sorry. I don't think you've realized. If you thought that there was ever a chance, you didn't realize how feral I am for Gideon. I don't even know how this is going to play out because Gideon is a force to be reckoned with. I am more than semi-obsessed. I've listened to so many hours of podcasts. I have reread these books so many times. I've tabbed them. I have an unhealthy relationship with Gideon the Ninth, and I can't help but try and explain. The Martian, I'm so sorry. Andy Weir is not moving forward, but there's a movie about it that's really great. The Martian is a book about Mark Watney. He is a botanist and he goes to Mars to try and grow things on it. He's a botanist and he's growing things on Mars. Things go awry and he ends up trapped on Mars, and it's his experience trying to get off the planet or survive until someone can come and save him. He deals with these tremendously terrifying circumstances with a lot of humility and humor, and it's just really funny to read. The fact that The Martian made me feel smart is something I will always appreciate because I really felt like I understood science, and as it turns out, I probably don't. On the other vein, we have Gideon the Ninth, who made me feel incredibly stupid. I had no idea what was happening through most of this book, and somehow by the end, I had a very strong impact that was happening to my body, and I was emotionally distraught and ruined. And I was like, wait, what? I thought I didn't understand. And why did I never DNF this? I was just being flung forward until I hit a wall, and it hurt, and I looked back and went, I understood everything I just read. And then I read it again, realized that was not true, and continued to read it ever since. Yeah, okay. So as much as I love Mark Botany, as me and my friend Sam from Sarcasm and Sci-Fi used to say, Gideon the Ninth is moving forward. Ugh, I hate this. What a stupid game I'm playing with myself. And I have now described these books, so it's gonna go a little bit quicker. The Raven Boys is going up against Piranesi. And I guess I haven't explained the Raven Boys. The Raven Boys is a group of friends who are going to go try and find a dead Welsh king, but it's really about family, friendship, finding yourselves. There's lots of fun, messy stuff and ghosts and ley lines, and half of the thrill is in the writing and Maggie Stiefvater's way of putting words together. Putting that up against Piranesi is sick and cruel. I realize I did this to myself. I cannot imagine. I cannot. Oh, but I have to. Okay. I am moving the Raven Boys forward, but I want you to know I thought about it. I thought about moving Piranesi because Piranesi is so good on his own. He's such a good boy and he's so strong, and there's so many fantastic little moments in that, and you could reread it and try and find answers, but I think you would finally eventually find the end. And I'm still picking up little nuances in the Raven Boys, and it's got a good hold on me. This was part of the beginning of my reading journey. The Raven Boys came out and I was in a really bad headspace, so it gave me back reading, and to be perfectly frank, it gave me back breathing because I was not doing well. So I have to respect the Raven Boys for what they did for me and what they continue to do in every reread. I'm due for a reread. Okay, they're moving forward. Oh, okay. That was hard. And no, don't make me do this. Do not make me put the Raven Boys Against the Nevermore series. I'm skipping this one for now. No, I'll go to a different one. I'll come back to this. Okay, we're looking at Malibu Rising up against Lady Macbeth. I'm moving Lady Macbeth forward. Oh, that's nice. That's a nice little easy decision that I just made. Lady Macbeth is moving forward. She won there because Malibu Rising is really great. It really helped me through some things and I enjoy it, but this is a different kind of masterpiece that I don't even think people are fully taking in. What's next? Strange the Dreamer versus Emily Wilde. Okay. This one I can do. Strange the Dreamer follows Laszlo, who is trying to find the city of Weep. This is him going on an exploration of that, alongside a different character who is the goddess of nightmares, a very sweet person who is trying to find her place, being that she is the goddess of nightmares. This is a duology, and it is insanely gorgeous. There's so many deep and important moments in Strange the Dreamer, as well as one of the most butterfly-invoking romances. There's so much emotion there, and I felt so much of it so quickly, and you would think it would be insta-love, but these characters are just so sweet and lovely together, and you're rooting for them so hard that I cosplay. I dress up as Strange the Dreamer. I have shown up on live shows talking about Strange the Dreamer. I have to move Strange the Dreamer forward. Emily Wilde is absolutely great. Love her. Strange the Dreamer is moving forward though. I'm hating how this side of the board is looking. We have Raven Boys, Nevermore, Lady Macbeth, and Strange the Dreamer. I absolutely hate this game. Never let me play this again. Let's move to the other side of the board because I can't deal. We're moving into We Hunt the Flame versus Scythe. We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faisal is a duology. It follows our main character who is a huntress, and she's sent on a quest to bring magic back to Arauia. And there is a very like heated romance while also being very like G to PG. I really liked the romance in this one, and that's up against Scythe. We Hunt the Flame has so much atmosphere, and it's some of the more gorgeous writing. If this was based off of writing alone, it would be We Hunt the Flame. But they both have endings that I really enjoyed and that I remember other people complaining about. We Hunt the Flame, I'm not going to tell you the ending, but it does something different. It subverts an expectation that would normally be expected from the lead and where she ends up. And the same with Scythe. Some people were unhappy with how it ended, and I really appreciated that they did something different, which didn't help me at all. I just need to breathe. I feel like I'm meditating right now and I'm just cutting it out. There's been very long pauses of me just staring. I only have 5 minutes of camera time left. 4 minutes. I cannot. I have to choose. I'll be right back. I hope my screen is recording. I had a weird moment there and I don't know actually if it is anymore, but we'll see. I am going with Scythe, and I don't entirely know why. I think it is something like guttural. I'm just going with Scythe. I have the special editions on my shelves. I've forked out money to make myself feel more attached to Scythe, so I'm going with Scythe. We Hunt the Flame has gorgeous writing, but Scythe did something that really, really hit. So we're moving forward from there. Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter versus Cersei. This is fucked. This is not fair. Let me explain Rage of Dragons. Rage of Dragons is a South African-inspired fantasy novel following Tao as he seeks revenge against atrocities happening, focuses on classism, and has dragons, and has a devastating ending to the first book, only for the second book to pick up and really just drop you into an adrenaline rush that never ends. Tao is an unstoppable force, and it really elicits very strong emotions from me. I'm waiting for book 3 with bated breath. While I love Cersei and it fulfills like a magic wealth inside of me, I'm choosing Rage. I'm choosing Tao. That's just how that's gonna have to be, because there's no way that I can't choose him. And I don't know how that's going to work out as a statement when we get to the rest of the books on this list. This is a horrible experiment. I cannot tell you how much I hate this. You are watching a person miserable. terrible. Are you not entertained? Sword Heart up against Baron the Nightingale. Sword Heart is by T. Kingfisher. This is probably my favorite T. Kingfisher if a sorceress comes to call doesn't absolutely knock it out of the park. Sword Heart follows a woman who is going through a very hard time. She is in the midst of trying to end her life via a broadsword so that she doesn't have to fight any longer with her family over an inheritance. But she's doing a really awkward and bad time of it. The broadsword actually has a soul in it, which is like a sworn soldier who comes out of the sword, helps her go across the land in order to find a monk lawyer to help her figure things out. It's just a really lovely, meandering story. It's perfect for me. I love exactly what Sword Heart does, and I just put the new cover in because I'm so excited that it's coming out. It's a romance, kind of, but it's more of an adventure, and it's definitely cozy. It's probably one of T. Kingfisher's coziest, which is going up against the Baron the Nightingale. And I think that while I absolutely love Sword Heart and never wanted to leave, the things that the Baron the Nightingale did are just unparalleled when you put it up against anything other than a heavy hitter. It holds up, and I only got so much time with the characters in Sword Heart, and I got 3 books worth of just gorgeous writing, beautiful prose. It kind of fulfills a lot of those magic aspects that I get from Cersei as well, but is just done alongside one of my favorite types of like epic fantasy stories. That won out. No. I want to stop this game. Could we just stop here? Could we not just say this is a lovely list and be done? Alright, we have Babel going up against Gideon the Ninth. And what am I supposed to do with that? Like, what do I do? What do I do with one of, like, the most remarkable books? Babel is a masterpiece, but so is Gideon the Ninth. Like, the fact that Gideon the Ninth did that and how she does it, and the fact that she continues to do it, because that's the thing. That's what's gonna win this out, is Gideon the Ninth is not a standalone. Tamsin Muir did this, it should have been a spark in the pan, but then she did it again with Harrow, and somehow I'm more in love with Harrow the Ninth. And then she did it with Nona, and I didn't put Nona on my 5-star prediction because I went, there's no way that Nona can be as good as Gideon and Harrow. And I shot myself in the foot with that one because that was a 5-star book, and I don't know how we got here. Gideon has to move forward. I understand that R.F. Kuang's Babel is a masterpiece and it's going to be a piece of classic literature generations from now. Gideon the Ninth is a lesbian space opera. It's also a murder mystery. I have no idea. I have no idea what Gideon the Ninth is. Gideon the Ninth is a league of her own, and she's moving forward. Boom. I did it. It's over. It happened. Oh my God. Oh my God. This has to be where it ends. I look at this list and I see all of the books I am constantly talking about in my videos. All of the books where you see the passion come out of me. And I have to go back to the Raven Boys and Nevermore, and I have to make a really hard decision. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm going down to The Strange the Dreamer and Lady Macbeth because I know I have to move Strange the Dreamer forward. Lady Macbeth is brand new in my head. I don't know if there's a fizzle. There might be a fizzle out point with Lady Macbeth. Strange the Dreamer is one of the oldest books on this list, and she stands strong, and I'm already feeling it. As I see it, I go, Lady Macbeth, she's not there yet. She has not earned that top spot. She made it as far as she can for now. I'm moving Strange the Dreamer forward. I know that I'm not doing this in any sort of order, and I just, I can't help you with that. Can I move any of these other books? Can anything easily move along? No. So I have to just go in order. All right. Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow, or The Raven Boys. The last book of The Raven Boys could have been better. Those are fighting words. Nevermore's last book hasn't happened yet, so I still have an ounce of hope. Really love all of the characters in The Raven Boys, like adore them. They are my friends. I'm married to Jupiter North. I'm going to move Nevermore forward over the Raven Boys, and I have never thought about that closely before, and I'm not gonna think about it now. I'm just gonna take the moment and I'm gonna move along. I'm not gonna think about it anymore. No, I'm not doing Strange the Dreamer and Nevermore. I'm not doing this. This video has to come to an end. I can't do this. Oh my god, picking one of these, this was the stupidest. If someone was threatening my life right now, I'd just tell them to take me out. The Scythe series versus the Rage of Dragons. We could be here all night. I'm gonna move the Rage of Dragons forward, and that doesn't feel incredibly right to me. It might be down to the fact that I'm grasping at straws, okay? Like, these are straws being grasped. There is a set of short stories, Gleanings. It is by Neil Shusterman, and it's within the Scythe world, set in this world, and I thought most of them were not very good. It was just like, if you are a super fan of the Scythe series, then you'll really enjoy these. And I enjoyed some of them. And everything about Rage of Dragons is deep and meaningful. So sorry. Oh, Marie Curie. Oh god, no. Okay, yes. I'm sticking by it. I'm putting my hands up. I almost just went back. Jesus. Okay, moving down. I think I might actually cry. Between Bear and the Nightingale and Gideon the Ninth, stop. They're different. They're so different. They do different things for me. It's not fair. It's not right. If one had to not exist, that's a sickening thought. That didn't even work for me. That line of thought did not work. That did not make this easier. It just made me ill. I think if there was a podcast between the Bear and the Nightingale and Gideon the Ninth, I would not have listened to the Bear and Nightingale podcast. That's why I'm moving Gideon the Ninth forward. There's only so much I personally can gain from the Bear and the Nightingale. I gained a lot. We are now getting down to the petty. The only reason these things are moving forward is just arbitrary things I've come up with myself. I'm looking at these 4 books and I'm suddenly not surprised in the least. I just don't know what happens next. Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow, Strange the Dreamer, Gideon the Ninth, Rage of Dragons. Of course, always. I probably could have started here. I could have just given these 4 books their due and just put the 4 against each other. But now that I'm here, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Look at this. This is atrocious. Oh god. And Minya, the things that happen in Strange the Dreamer are so important, but so are the things that happen in Nevermore. And Rage of Dragons is obviously important. Gideon, I don't even know. Of course it's important. It's all important. All books are important. I want you to know I was hoping this would be under 30 minutes. Like, I was hoping to edit it down to 23. What do I do first? Nevermore against Strange the Dreamer. Nevermore against Strange the Dreamer. I'm turning my camera off. I need time to think. Laini Taylor has other books. I have not loved her other books as much. I've actually set them aside. Jessica Townsend only has the Nevermore series. She hasn't completed it yet. She's been having a hard time with it lately. I would just as easily marry Laszlo Strange or Sarai as I would Jupiter North. How many characters am I absolutely in love with? How many characters within the book am I obsessed with? Maybe that's what I need to go off of. Jupiter North, I love. I am in love with him. It's not platonic, okay? Strange the Dreamer, I love Sarai. I love Laszlo. I love Minya. And that's really saying something. I love Minya because I want to care for her. I've worked with at-risk youth and foster care children. I know who Minya is. And I love Sarai and I adore Laszlo. And it's Strange the Dreamer. Oh my god. Strange the Dreamer is moving forward on this bracket list that I arbitrarily made up on a Tuesday. So none of this actually matters. But Strange the Dreamer is moving forward. Sickening. No. Please. I would listen to a podcast, The Rage of Dragons. I also, if I think about the authors, I have a massive crush on Evan Winter. I have a massive crush on Tamsin Muir. I cannot leave it up to the authors. That's a little bit of everything for me. I have a crush on Tao. I have a crush on Gideon. This is like I have a crush on these books. These are squishy little feelings I have are in those books. What do I do? Arguments against the books. People will say that Gideon is a little too chaotic. It's too on the nose. It's overwritten is what people say. People are wrong. Those people are wrong. If you believe that, sorry. Welcome to being wrong. Rage of Dragons. There is a couple scenes and arguments about a lack of feminism, which I do disagree with. They might hold more merit than the arguments against Gideon the Ninth. I think that if you pay attention and if it's your kind of book, Gideon the Ninth's critiques don't hold up. I think that there there is some merit and value to what I think is misunderstood about the Rage of Dragons. That is the fact that I don't think it's not feminist. I think that people are not looking at the larger aspects of the fact that this is a matriarchal world, that all of these characters are important in their own right, and they all make their own decisions, and their own decisions made sense. People can die in this series and it not be someone not representing women well. Don't want to give anything more away. There's lots of women in this series and lots of women die. There's lots of men in the series and lots of men die. In Gideon the Ninth, everyone, almost, lots of, there's death, okay? Whew. There's an argument to be made. If you read Rage of Dragons exactly how I did, you could still make the argument, which is unfortunate because it's not true. But it's there. I don't think if you actually pay attention to Gideon the Ninth and you are reading it like I did, you're taking it in, you're taking the time with the book, I don't think it's overwritten. I think that it's written just right. It's written just right. I can't. It also has beautiful prose. That's the other thing about Gideon the Ninth. It has beautiful prose. Rage of Dragons is amazing, but does it have beautiful prose? Okay, we're moving it forward. Yeah. Alright. Gideon the Ninth is going up against Strange the Dreamer, and it's Gideon. I feel like, in my heart of hearts, Rage of Dragons would have beat out Strange the Dreamer, but I don't know. I wasn't given the opportunity. I'm really just, it's Gideon. Gideon the Ninth is my all-time favorite book. I feel emotionally sabotaged. I feel wrecked. I feel unwell. I've reached my conclusion. I know my answer. I wish I could take Rage of Dragons. It's right there. This was one of the hardest videos to film because I just wanted all of the time in the world and I was not given it. I mean, I'm pretty sure you probably gave me a lot of time. It was still not enough, but if there was a gun to my head and I had to answer, it would be Gideon. Gideon is my favorite book of all time. I'm gonna go cry now. And maybe read Nevermore. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry. I don't even know who could have possibly made it to the end of this video. I feel empty inside, so you can please leave me your favorite book. If you can name your all-time favorite book without any caveats, go ahead and put that down below. If you just want to soothe me, please leave some star emojis, like the little sparkly ones, or for yourself, in order to just avoid the entire situation, leave the sparkly star emojis. I'm going to go eat, nap, read Nevermore, self-soothe in some sort of way, never do this again. I know I mentioned that I might possibly do this again in the future. I don't think I will. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Whether you leave a comment or not, I hope you're enjoying the sun or more stars wherever you are. And until next time, bye!